Do you need a sander with a central vac? We'll let you decide when we get back. I'm Tim Johnson. You're watching Shop Tool Reviews. This is the AirCat 6-inch Random Orbital Sander. I think it's their 6700 series. We'll give you the full model number here in a moment. But basically, it's a 6-inch Random Orbital pneumatic sander. It's also got their central vac attachment. Now, what does that mean? It means it's going to pull air through the pad and into a dust extractor, into a vacuum, whatever you have it hooked to, that's actually going to pull that air through. It's going to pull all that dust through the pad. And how well does it work? Well, we'll actually find out, because we're not only going to talk about the features of this, but we're also going to go and use it. We're going to use it with and without dust extraction hooked to it to see how well it does. Let's go over to the workbench. Let's kind of dig into all the features, and then we'll actually use this on a body panel, and then we'll come back and wrap it up. Okay, so this is how you'll get your AirCat sander. This is the 6-inch central vac model. So it'll come, and you got a typical manual down there. I think there's a tool in there as well. Yeah, should be a tool. Go ahead and get that out. Move that to the side, so get a nice, beautiful bag. Throw that away, you don't need that anymore. So anyway, so this is the, I think the exact model is the 6700 6-336CV, which, breaking that down, 6-inch sander, and it's a 3/16 inch orbit, which is basically 5 millimeters, by the way. A lot of the orbits have gone to millimeters. This is a wrench that slides in there, and you can take the pad off, so easily take that off. We'll do that here in a moment. But anyway, so this is a pneumatic 6-inch sander. Now, if you're not familiar with AirCat, they're actually a Florida company, and they make a lot of pneumatic tools, and their sanders are pretty nice, I must say, especially for the price. Now, this is a 11,000 RPM model. I believe that's at a recommended, 90 PSI, so don't exceed 90 PSI, or 6.2 bar if you're on the bar system. Most of us in the US go by PSI. And again, as we mentioned, a 3/16 or 5 millimeter orbit. So this is a random orbital sander. It's not a geared sander, so it's not always going to rotate. If you put a lot of pressure on it, it'll stop rotating, but it's always going to orbit. And that orbit is 3/16 of an inch. So a little smaller than a quarter, or 5 millimeters. And at a free speed, if you held it up and pulled the throttle all the way down, basically, again, you're going to get 11,000 RPM out of that, so it's going to spin quite rapidly. But once you put that down on the surface, you're not going to get that kind of RPMs. Now, this is their central vac model. They make this with and without the vac, so this allows you to hook up dust extraction to be able to pull dust out from the surface. And it does that through a perforated pad. So you see the holes here in the pad. So the vacuum's actually going to pull air through this pad, and so therefore you need to make sure that you're using a paper that has holes in it so that it can actually utilize that dust extraction. Now, they actually make some pretty nice paper like this, where it's actually kind of perforated all the way through, and you don't have to line up the holes. But you can definitely get the holes in your sandpaper where it actually lines up, or you can actually make the holes as well. I've seen people use wooden dowels to cut it aslant and make a jig to poke holes in this, use a drill bit, whatever, to put holes in your paper to make sure it's using that. And then this is the hook and loop model. You can also get it in PSA, where it's got the adhesive or the vinyl face, so you can use your adhesive pads. But anyway, this is the hook and loop, so you can see here, I can put my Abranet paper on there, and it's going to pull all the air and dust through that paper, through the pad, and then through this hole here and into your dust extractor. Now, as far as the hole there, that's one thing our industries have not come in to a common thread on, is basically kind of attachments into hooking up power tools. This is 1 1/4 inches. So the OD, the outside diameter to this hookup, is 1 1/4 inches. That's pretty important for you to know, and depending on what dust extractor you're getting, that's going to determine on, do you need a 2-inch to a 1 1/4, a 3-inch, a 2.5, what have you, but you need to get something to neck it down to 1 1/4 inches so that you can hook up to it. It comes with a basically 1/4 inch inlet. Well, it does not come with this, does not come with a nipple, but it's made for a 1/4 inch inlet. And then you get a throttle right here, so you get low and high. This is variable speed as well, but typically you're going to grab a hold of this and hold your hand on it and not have to vary the throttle here. through having to vary that. So you can actually set what you want your max throttle to be right here. And then, like I said, just kind of grab a hold of this. And it is quite an ergonomic tool where you can just put your hand on it and it triggers that. There's no trigger you have to grab. That paddle there is going to depress the plunger and allow all that airflow to come through. And again, depending on where you set your throttle is going to determine how much speed or how many RPMs you have at the tool or at the business end of the pad. Let's take a look here underneath. We'll take our tool here. And by the way, if you ever wonder, why we have a gap here, especially on these VAC models, well, you don't want a solid, or you don't want that skirt coming all the way down to the pad, because then what you would have would be a situation where you would have too much suction going on. I can do this, I promise. Okay, so you see a nut there that you should be able to easily slide in here, and I just couldn't figure it out. But anyway, I got it. But anyway, so this skirt is not made to go all the way down to the pad, because you still need some airflow even if you have this kind of plugged up. So that's why you have a little bit of a gap there anyway. But this is a rubber membrane here that again kind of gets close to that surface and keeps that suction coming through the pad. This is your offset weight, and it also determines your orbit. And you see right there on the tool itself, it says 3/16 of an orbit, pad size 6 inches. The reason it says that is because on a 5-inch tool, you're going to have a different counterweight. On a different orbit system, you're going to have a different counterweight. So not all tools are the exact same. You'll get a different vibration or more of a vibration if you change out those weights into a different weight. So a lot of that determines how smooth that tool is going to use, and this one actually runs pretty smooth. We'll show that here in a moment. And by the way, that's also a good point on probably how to run the manufacturer's pad as well. So when this pad wears out, go to AirCat, buy the pad. It's not that expensive. And by the way, this whole tool I think is just over $100, so pretty cheap tool anyway. Pretty value sensitive tool. And also, you see how clean this is? By the way, we cleaned it up. We have used this already, but in a moment we'll use this and we'll take this off again and we'll see how much grime is in here of the dust extraction that's pulling through. Let's go ahead and use this and see how it works. Would you mind if I broke in here for just one moment? If you like this video, would you mind hitting the like and subscribe button? Also that bell notification, that's gonna let you know when new videos are available. And by all means, hit that like button if you like us. If you don't like us, hit the unlike button or the thumbs down, but let us know in the comments why. Back to the video. Okay, we're going to use the AirCat sander to see how well it works, and we're going to see some different features on this. First, we're going to turn on the compressor, going to turn on the dust extractor as well. So it's going to get a little noisy, so you're going to hear a little background noise, so forgive us for that. We'll try to tune out as much as we can. But I've got a piece of tape down here with it folded up. I'm trying to let it act as a dam. I don't know if it's going to work or not, but what I'm going to show is, number one, how effective the actual sander is and how it does quite a bit of work, as well as we'll see how much of that the dust extractor actually picks up when we actually turn the dust extractor onto the vacuum port and then start sucking that dust away rather than it just falling down to this dam or going into the air or what have you. So let me turn the compressor on. Okay, so we have the compressor on. I do not have the dust extractor on yet. I'm going to go ahead and connect this. Again, it's typical, quarter inch nipple. So plug that in. And what I'll do, I like this door because we've got several different substrates here. We've got some rust, we've got some body filler, some Bondo, some primer, some paint, kind of all of the above, some glazing that we can actually see the paper cutting through. And by the way, I think I've got, some 40 grit on there. We got 40 grit paper. And again, you can see it's perforated. You can actually see through that. And here is my throttle here. So you see it says high and low. So that's with the depressed all the way. So you can control that pretty well. I'm going to put it about 3/4. Okay, again, this is no vac hooked up, just the sander. Okay, so number one, this thing is really low on vibration. It's also muffled very well. So it's supposed to have like a 75 dB rating. And so it is quite quiet, very quiet for an air tool. And you see all of this dust that is being caught by here, but obviously all of it's not being caught. Some of this is going in the air and everything. So this is the type of dust that lays all over the body shop, gets in your lungs, you breathe it all the time, especially when you're going to a finer paper and cutting it even finer. This stuff's gonna be blowing around and not being caught. So now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna hook up our dust extractor and I'm gonna turn it on. So let me turn it on. And I'm gonna hook it up. And you'll see I can actually pick this up right off of the panel. So that's actually pulling it through here. And now watch when I sand now. So we're virtually creating no dust anymore. I'm going to take the dust extractor and just pull off all that dust. Now we'll run this again and see if we have any residual down here other than that little bit that's stuck to the tape. By the way, when you're ready to go to a finer grit or to change your disc, just take it off with that hook and loop, and now I can go to a, say, a 320. Say if I was doing some final work. Oh, need to turn on my VAC. You saw I could quickly go to my thumb there and actually adjust that throttle when I go to a finer paper. If I wanted to slow that down a little bit, not cut so much and really feather things in, I can do so right there from that thumb throttle. And again, as long as I've got my hand on here, easily depresses that paddle trigger, and there's virtually no vibration in this tool. I shouldn't say that. There's definitely vibration. There's not a lot of shaking. You just feel the, those RPMs of that tool, but there's really not a lot of anti-ergonomics, if you will, going on. Very comfortable to hold that sander. You'll also see here after sanding there's literally no dust here. There's literally no dust other than what was on that tape and stuck to it. So running that extractor through the sander, you're picking up the majority of that residual coming off that surface. There's really no reason not to use a dust extractor nowadays, really not. I mean, all that going airborne, all that getting in your shop, now you've got virtually no cleanup. You've got none of that junk going in your lungs. You've got none of those primer boogers at the end of the day. Sorry, but that's the case. So anyway, let's go back and wrap this up. Those are pretty dramatic results between using the VAC attachment or the dust extraction attachment and not using it. Now the sander itself, it works very well. And actually, we've actually used one of these before and we knew they were impressive, especially for a $130 price tag. So as for a sander, it works great. 5mm orbit, 11,000 RPMs, nice throttle position here where you can easily adjust that with your thumb. Love the paddle design where you can easily put your hand on it. It's easily going to depress that. And so now you're wide open, or at least your max RPM as to what you've set the air pressure to. So as far as a sander, it works great. But how well does it do with the dust extraction? Because that's one thing we know when we walk in body shops all over the place, is there's always that layer of dust and Bondo. And somebody recently said, well, if there's not a layer of dust and Bondo, then it's probably closed up. There's nobody working there anymore. There's a lot of truth to that, but it doesn't have to be that way. That's why we're thrilled when we see something like a sander like this, which again, Doesn't break the bank, $130 sander, comes with a 2-year warranty, has the central vac attachment or the dust extraction attachment so that you can actually pull all that dust out of the air now. You don't have to breathe that. So very happy with the performance of this, happy with the value on it, and happy with how well it does pull that, extract that dust. Probably depends on what type of machine you're hooking this to, and definitely don't just hook a shop vac up to it. If you do that, you're probably going to have dust slung around the shop anyway. A good dust extractor is going to have multi-filtration layers or multi-stages of filtration. Ours that we use the Milwaukee, so you get a fleece bag that acts as a filtration system, you get a primary pleated filter, and then you have a final HEPA filter. So you're catching 99+% of that dust and you're not getting in the air at all. We wanted to see of actually what this thing looks like after using it for, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes there. We had it nice and cleaned up beforehand. And you see quite a bit of dust in there. Not really that much though. It's actually pulled all that through and all that's actually in the machine. So the longer we use that, the more we'll start getting some residual in there. But it did quite well of keeping all that clean. So not only are you keeping your lungs clean, you're keeping your tools clean as well. Check out the AirCat sander as well as their other tools at aircat.com. Also keep track of us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. If you don't mind, hit that like and subscribe button, only if you like this video. If you didn't like it, let us know in the comments why, and by all means, go ahead and give us a thumbs down. Have a great day and keep smiling.